My mother, father, and brother came to my apartment while I was sick, demanding to break down the door because they had decided it was now my brother's. They thought I was weak and isolated, an easy target. So I let them walk right into the legal trap I had been preparing for over a year. This is where the story truly begins, and you won't want to miss what happens. Make sure you're subscribed to see it through to the end. We're always curious. Where in the world are you all watching from today? Let us know in the comments. The fever had me in a headlock. My entire body ached, a deep, throbbing misery that made the plush cushions of my sofa feel like concrete. I was on my third day of a nasty flu, surviving on electrolyte drinks and lukewarm tea, when the sound shattered my quiet apartment. Bang, bang, bang. It wasn't a knock. It was a full-fisted, furious pounding that rattled the deadbolt in its housing. I groaned, pulling a blanket tighter around my shoulders. My head swam as I pushed myself to my feet, shuffling toward the door. I squinted through the peephole, and my blood ran cold, cutting through the fever instantly. It was my family. My mother, Martha, stood front and center, her face twisted in a mask of righteous fury. My father, David, stood just behind her, his arms crossed, looking grim, and beside them, looking bored and entitled, was my brother, Leo. Before I could even find my voice, I heard my mother's muffled shout through the solid wood. "Leo, just break down the door," she commanded, her voice high and shrill. "This is our son's apartment, she can't keep you out." I stumbled back, my hand flying to my mouth. My head spun, but not from the fever. Her son's apartment? I bought this place. Every square inch was paid for by my 14-hour days, my sacrificed weekends, my relentless focus as a senior software developer. The shock was so profound, so absurd, that for a moment I thought I was hallucinating. The pounding came again, harder this time, as if Leo was actually considering taking a run at it. The betrayal was sharper, colder, and more painful than any flu symptom. My hand trembled as I pressed the button on the intercom panel by the door. "What are you doing?" I croaked, my voice rough from sickness. "You're going to get the police called on you." My mother's face pressed toward the speaker. "Ilara, stop this nonsense. We are not leaving until you let your brother in. He needs this place. You know he's in trouble." "I'm sick," I said, leaning my forehead against the cool wall. "Go away." "We'll take care of you once we get Leo settled," she dismissed, as if my illness was a minor inconvenience. "Now open the door, or we'll have the building manager do it." I clicked the intercom off, my heart hammering. This wasn't a surprise, not really. It was an escalation. My mind flashed back to a tense family dinner 2 weeks ago. Leo, my 29-year-old freelance artist brother, was complaining about his creative block and how his landlord was a tyrant for expecting rent on time. My mother had looked directly at me, her gaze sharp and pointed. "Well," she'd said, placing her hand on Leo's, "it's a good thing family takes care of its own. A daughter's success is a parent's safety net." I had just sipped my water, offering a noncommittal shrug. But my internal voice, the logical, meticulous programmer part of my brain, had made a quiet observation. They always forget I'm a developer. I don't just build software, I build firewalls. I'd been building mine for a year, and it was about to be tested. The pounding at the door was no longer just a threat. It was a validation of every protective measure I had taken. The dynamic in my family was set in stone decades ago. Leo was the golden child, the creative soul, who was too special for the mundanities of a 9-to-5 job. My parents poured money into his every whim, a failed app startup that cost them thousands, a consulting business that never had a client, and endless supplies for his art, which mostly consisted of him complaining about not having inspiration. I was the responsible one, the practical daughter. I was the one who got scholarships, worked 2 jobs through college, and clawed my way up in the competitive tech world. But in my family's eyes, my success wasn't my own. It was a communal resource, a safety net for Leo's inevitable failures. My salary, my stability, my home, they saw it all as an extension of the family bank account, one they were entitled to withdraw from at will. The current crisis, I knew, was that Leo's landlord had finally followed through on an eviction notice. After months of non-payment, my golden boy brother was about to be homeless. And so, the family council, consisting of my mother, my father, and Leo himself, had convened and decided on a solution. Ilara's apartment. It made perfect sense to them. I was single. I had a big 2-bedroom apartment. Surely I didn't need all that SB. Ace, Leo could move in and I could. Well, they probably hadn't thought that far ahead. Maybe I'd move into my smaller guest room. Maybe I'd just be grateful for the opportunity to serve the family. Their entitlement was a black hole, and it had finally landed on my doorstep, threatening to tear down my door. But what they saw as my home, I had already converted into a fortress. The turning point had come exactly 1 year ago. It wasn't a dramatic blowout, but a quiet, soul-crushing transaction. Leo had another emergency. He'd racked up $20,000 in credit card debt researching a new project, and the interest was, in his words, stifling his creativity. My mother called me, weeping, talking about his fragile mental state and how this one last thing would finally set him on the right path. Like a fool, I gave them the money. I wrote the check, and my father promised with a solemn look that it was a loan. "We'll pay you back every penny, Ilara. You have our word." 6 months later, when I gently inquired about a payment plan, my mother laughed. "Oh, Ilara, don't be so dramatic. It's family. You didn't really need that money, did you?" That was the click, the final piece of code slotting into place. I wasn't their daughter, I was their emergency fund. That day, I stopped being a victim. I became a strategist. I didn't argue or yell. I just made an appointment with a financial advisor and a corporate lawyer. 2 weeks later, EV Properties LLC was formed with me as the sole managing member. My meticulous developer brain devoured the legal text. I transferred my apartment, my stock portfolio, and my savings into an irrevocable trust, which was in turn managed by the LLC. It was a clean, legal, and impenetrable firewall. My home was no longer owned by Ilara, the daughter. It was corporate property, and I was just its tenant and manager. They couldn't emotionally manipulate an LLC. The pounding at the door stopped. A new, more sinister sound replaced it, the jangle of keys, and then the scrape of metal in my deadbolt. My blood turned to ice. Leo. He must have stolen my spare key the last time he was here, the one I kept in a kitchen drawer for emergencies. My sickness-induced weakness evaporated, replaced by a surge of pure, cold adrenaline. I grabbed my phone from the coffee table, tapped the record button on the video app, and aimed it at the door. The deadbolt turned, the door swung open. My mother, Martha, stood there, her face flushed with victory. Leo was just behind her, smirking, and my father brought up the rear, carrying one of Leo's suitcases. "Finally," my mother snapped, striding into my foyer as if she owned it. We were about to call the super. "Ilara, go lie down, you look terrible. Leo, put your things in the guest room for now, we can." "Get out," I said. My voice was quiet, but it cut through the air. It wasn't the hoarse croak of a sick woman. It was the clear, low command of a managing member. They all froze. My mother turned, an expression of comical disbelief on her face. "What did you just say to me?" I said, "Get out." I held the phone up, its red recording light glowing plainly. "You are trespassing. And Leo," I added, my gaze locking onto my brother, "that was an impressive display of breaking and entering. I'm sure the police will be very interested." "Don't be ridiculous, Ilara," Leo scoffed, though his smirk faltered. "It's my key." "It's a stolen key," I corrected, "and this isn't your apartment." Martha let out an exasperated sigh, the kind she'd used on me my whole life when I was being difficult. She and Leo pushed past me, into the living room. My father, looking deeply uncomfortable, left the suitcase by the door and shuffled in behind them. "Stop this nonsense," Martha snapped, waving her hand dismissively at my phone. "We are not trespassing. We are your family. We're moving Leo's things in this weekend. He'll take the guest room and the office, and you can just work from your laptop in here. It's settled." "No," I said. "I didn't move from the doorway, just watch them." It's not settled, you can't move him in. Watch me, Leo said, flopping onto my sofa, putting his dirty shoes up on the upholstery. You can't, I repeated, a cold, small smile touching my lips. Because I don't technically own this apartment. That stopped them. All three of them turned to look at me. My mother's eyes narrowed. What? What kind of trick is this? Did you sell it? You sold it without telling us? The panic in her voice was audible. The family asset was gone. No, I didn't sell it, I said. I walked calmly over to my desk, my phone still recording. I picked up a framed document I'd purposefully left out. It was my LLC's articles of organization. This apartment, I said, my voice resonating in the sudden, tomb-like silence, is the primary asset of EV Properties, LLC. I am merely the managing member. Which means, right now, you are trespassing on C. Operate property. And I, as the managing member, am ordering you to leave immediately. The silence that followed was stunning. My mother's face went from red to a blotchy, pale white. Leo actually sat up, his shoes hitting the floor. What? LLC? You're lying, that's just a piece of paper. You can't do that. She can't be serious, David, my mother whispered, turning to my father. My father, who had been silent, finally spoke, his voice weak. Ilura, that's not right, we're your family. And you, I countered, my voice like steel, came to my home while I was sick, used a stolen key, and tried to break down the door to give my property to my brother. That's what's not right. I held up my phone. I've been recording this entire conversation. In fact, I said, tapping the screen, I'm on a live call with my lawyer right now. He's been listening for the last 3 minutes. Hi, Mr. Henderson. I put the phone on speaker. A crisp, professional voice filled the room. Ms. Martha, Mr. David, and Mr. Leo, this is Howard Henderson. I am the legal counsel for EV Properties. I have a recording of your threat to break down the door and your subsequent illegal entry. Building security is on their way, and I have advised my client to file a formal police report. You have 30 seconds to vacate the premises before I authorize her to press full charges. The word police was the kill shot. My mother's righteous anger vanished, replaced by pure, uncut panic. The public humiliation of being escorted out of their successful daughter's luxury building by security was more than she could bear. David, Leo, get the bag, she shrieked. They scrambled, falling over each other to get to the door. They were out of my apartment in less than 20 seconds. My mother gave me one last look, a look of such profound hatred and betrayal that it confirmed I had done the right thing. Then I shut the door, slid the deadbolt, and leaned against it, my legs finally trembling. An hour later, my fever was raging again, but my locksmith had already come and gone. All new locks, high security. The next morning, I felt awful, but I dragged myself to my laptop and, with my lawyer on video, filed the formal trespassing complaint. The barrage of texts and voicemails started that afternoon. They were a predictable mix of my mother's screaming rage, my father's wheedling disappointment, and a single, pathetic text from Leo. You ruined my life. I didn't reply. I just forwarded the numbers to my lawyer. The next day, my family's new favorite person, Mr. Henderson, sent them a certified cease and desist letter. It formally barred them from my property and my place of work. And as a final, beautiful piece of punctuation, the letter included a formal demand for the repayment of the $20,000 loan from EV Properties, LLC, which, as it turned out, had purchased that debt from me as part of its asset acquisition. The letter cited their financial distress as a potential motive for their actions and noted that failure to arrange a payment plan would result in litigation. Faced with real, binding legal consequences, not just their daughter's hurt feelings, they went completely, blessedly silent. It took me a week to recover from the flu. It will probably take me a lifetime to recover from my family. But as I sat in my living room, my home, my fortress, sipping tea and watching the city lights come on, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. I was safe. The firewall had held,